All right, let's get right into it. Today, we're talking about one of the most famous bodyguards in all of Chinese history, Xu Chu. He was more than just a bodyguard. He was the personal shield, the final line of defense for the legendary warlord Cao Cao. So, when you think of Xu Chu, what comes to mind? For most of us, right, it's this image of a hulking, bare-chested giant. Maybe not the sharpest tool in the shed, but always ready for a good brawl. He's basically the action figure version you see in movies and video games. But here's where it gets really good. What if I told you that's mostly fiction? The real guy, yeah, he was something else entirely. Quiet, super focused, a true professional. And trust me, his actual story is way, way better than any legend. So you gotta ask, right? How did we get these two totally different pictures of the same person? Well, it all boils down to where we're getting our information. Okay, so think of it like this. On one hand, you've got this epic blockbuster novel, The Romance of the Three Kingdoms. It was written like 1,000 years after the fact. It's all about the drama, the action. Then, on the other hand, you have the official history, the records of the Three Kingdoms. This was written by someone who was actually around back then. So you've got fiction versus fact. And today, we're going to peel those two apart.
All right, so let's dig into the real dude. And the best place to start? It's gotta be his famous nickname.
His own men called him Hu Chi. Now, the novel, it takes that and runs with it, translating it as Tiger Idiot. You know, it paints him as this big, dumb brute. But history tells a different story. The real meaning is closer to tiger obsessive. Think about that. He wasn't an idiot. He was obsessed. So locked in on his one job, protecting his boss, that literally nothing else mattered. Not politics, not small talk, nothing. Just the mission. And man, does this just nail the difference, right? The legend is this hot-headed guy who's always looking for a fight. The historical man? The total opposite. Quiet, careful, and completely incorruptible. He wasn't some brawler on the front lines. No way. He was the head of security, and you better believe he acted like it. Okay, so how does a guy like this tiger obsessive, get such a wild reputation? Well, we can trace it all back to 3 key moments in his life. And the first one, it happened before he even knew who Cao Cao was. Picture this. His village is surrounded by bandits, and everyone is starving. They make a desperate deal. They'll trade one of their war oxen for food. So the bandits come to collect, but the ox, it totally freaks out and bolts. And what does Xu Chu do? He just walks up, grabs this massive, angry animal by the tail, and just drags it. Drags it over 100 paces by himself. The bandits just stood there, their jaws on the floor, and then they just ran. They wanted no part of that. And just like that, a legend was born. All right, fast forward a bit. During a huge campaign, some assassins, and get this, they were in Cao Cao's own guard, planned to take him out. They wait for that one tiny window of opportunity, the moment Xu Chu finally goes to take a break. But as he's walking away, he gets this feeling, you know, a bodyguard's sixth sense. He doesn't hesitate. He spins right around, walks back into the tent, and boom, there they are, daggers out, ready to make their move. He took them all down right then and there. That instinct, that diligence, that's what saved his lord's life. It proved his focus was his deadliest weapon. Okay, now for the big one, his most famous scene, the showdown with the legendary warrior Ma Chao. The novel makes this out to be this insane, bare-chested duel that goes on for like 200 rounds. It's pure Hollywood, and it's also pure fiction. The real story? It wasn't a battle of swords, it was a battle of wills. So, Cao Cao goes to meet Ma Chao for peace talks. But he only brings one guy with him, Xu Chu. Now Ma Chao is secretly planning to jump Cao Cao right there. But he's heard the stories about this bodyguard, so he asks, a little cocky, "So where is this Tiger Marquis I've heard so much about?" Cao Cao doesn't even say a word, he just points. Xu Chu turns and just glares at Ma Chao, gives him this ice-cold stare. And that's all it took. Ma Chao, we're talking one of the most dangerous fighters of his time, completely froze. He backed down, he didn't dare make a move. Think about that. Xu Chu stopped an assassination attempt with a look. No sword, no fight, just pure intimidation. And that wasn't even all he did during that campaign. At one point, their boat gets ambushed on a river. What does Xu Chu do? He grabs a saddle to use as a shield against a rain of arrows. He takes over rowing the boat himself when the boatman gets killed, and he's fighting off guys trying to climb aboard, all at the same time. I mean, come on, he was a one-man army, saving Cao Cao's skin, again. But see, all that action hero stuff is only half the story. To really understand the guy, you have to look at the moments that showed his character, his unbreakable, almost obsessive commitment to his duty. Here's a perfect example. Sa Ren, who is not just a top general, but also Cao Cao's cousin, so family, right, tries to pull Xu Chu aside for a private word. And Xu Chu just shuts him down, flat out refuses and goes back to his post. Later, someone pulls him aside like, dude, what are you doing? That's Cao Ren. Why would you disrespect him like that? And Xu Chu's answer? It tells you everything you need to know about him. He just says, we can talk in public, that's fine, but why does he need to talk in private? See, for him, it didn't matter if it was Cao Cao's cousin or some random stranger. A private meeting was a break in protocol, and any break in protocol was a security risk. End of story. And the best part? When word gets back to Cao Cao, is he mad? Nope. He praises Xu Chu, promotes him even. Because Cao Cao got it. He knew Xu Chu's loyalty wasn't about sucking up to powerful relatives. It was about one thing and one thing only, the job. Duty over absolutely everything else. And that sense of duty, it wasn't just a job for him. It was his whole identity, his whole life. So much so that when Cao Cao finally passed away in 220, the history books say Xu Chu was so destroyed by grief that he wept until he vomited blood. I mean, just imagine that. His entire reason for being was gone. So let's bring it all together. Once you peel away all of the myths and the action movie stuff, who is the man left standing? What's the real legacy of Xu Chu? Well, for starters, his story didn't just stop when Cao Cao died. He kept right on serving, protecting Cao Cao's son and then his grandson with that exact same level of focus. He was always in the top security job, always respected. After he passed, they even gave him a special title, the Robust Marquis, basically honoring him for his unbreakable strength and character. And that really brings us back to the core question, doesn't it? The fictional warrior, the guy who fights for glory. Sure, he's fun to watch, but is he really more impressive than the real man? The quiet professional whose focus was so intense, whose presence was so powerful, that his loyalty, his duty, became the most dangerous weapon in his arsenal. That's the Xu Chu history asks us to remember.